No, no, no. I will just check the system. Okay, great. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Last day of the conference post-lunch session. But anyways, we'll try and make it as interesting and interactive as possible. We're talking about semi-formal tenure and correlation with mortgage, housing finance. And we look at it from the lens of land and housing, and hence we need to look at it carefully. So this is my hello? Yeah. Yeah, so I had attended ILDC 7, which happened in Bangalore, Azim Premji University. There was only one session which was even remotely linked to housing. And this is like 2 editions later, we have at least like 5 sessions, urban planning, housing being talked about, which is quite interesting. But then it's also a thing that we need to unpack this problem and understand it better. So the first thing which I wanted to kind of explain, which also came up in other sessions as well, is the whole idea of urban local bodies. There are 4,400 in India. If Delhi, Bombay are 1 and 2, metros top 10, capital cities top 35, major cities 50, smart cities 100, urban or district headquarters 700, urban is still 4,400. So when we talk about urban and then 6 lakh plus villages, when we talk about housing, the housing for Bombay or Delhi vis-a-vis housing for a tier 2, tier 3 town, vis-a-vis housing in the village will also vary significantly. So somewhere while we understand this difference, when we come into a conversation, we suddenly say, oh, all housing is unaffordable. You and I cannot buy a house in Delhi or Bombay. Suddenly the conversation becomes buying an apartment in Bombay or Delhi. While housing can happen elsewhere and the way it happens is different, the way we make land available for housing in each of these categories of cities and towns and villages are also different. And to that extent, we need to unpack what we are trying to say when we are talking about housing and land. It's not like one thing everywhere, it is also a diverse set of items. Second is about the systems which we have as we speak. Most of the housing finance system, which we will also hear today, follows the registration system of legal. Like what is getting registered, what is recorded in the registry, and that is what is being tracked. Revenue side is taken as an additional information or more as a validation information. But most of the work which happens on the land administration tends to prefer to work with the revenue side of documentation and look at the registration side of documentation as an additional requirement. Like there's validation, like because in most of the end use case of land mutation, partitions and usage of land, the need for registration is usually optional. Like the registration will happen when a transaction needs to happen, or for that matter even mutation we heard in other sessions that happens only when there is a need for a transaction. Otherwise the revenue record still stands in the name of the original owner, the grandparent who had originally owned the piece of land. So there is also always this lag on how that document gets updated. But the housing finance system, especially in India, has been following the registration side of things. And it was fine to a large extent because most of the segment catered to was middle income, high income and urban kind of scenario. So there was a transaction which is when a financing would happen, and hence there is a limited availability at least of registration side of documentation. So that is something which we will have to keep in mind. Third thing I will probably ask the audience. The third thing I will probably do a poll and then invite our first speaker. How many of you here, which is not many but still, heard about Aadhaar housing finance? Aadhar Housing Finance? You've not heard, right? Okay, so in this context, I will invite Suraj Shetty, Head of Legal of Aadhar Housing Finance, which is an RBI regulated entity. Okay, all housing finance in India are regulated by the Reserve Bank of India. It's an RBI regulated entity. It will fall under the category of NBFC Housing Finance Company, non-banking finance company, HFC Housing Finance Company, specializing in housing finance. And this is one classic case which we will also discuss today. The kind of lending institutions which can potentially solve the challenge of housing loans to lower income, informal tenure clients are not the usual lending institutions which you and I would interact with. Which is why I started with this hypothetical question: how many of you have heard about Aadhar Housing Finance? Now that's one of the largest housing finance company in India, serving this segment. So in that note, I'll invite Suraj Shetty, Head of Legal of Aadhar Housing Finance. He'll probably talk about the journey of Aadhar Housing Finance to give you a flavor of what these companies are and how they have evolved and how they are capable of tackling the challenge of access to housing finance for the segment that we are talking about. Over to you, Surajji. Welcome.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for a brief introduction about myself and the company I'm associated with. So, to be more on the company side, I have joined Aadhar in the year 2018 as a head legal, and I am heading the legal department since then. The company was incorporated in the year 2010-11, and it was one of the company which started its affordable housing. It is one of the first couple of companies which started its funding in affordable segments. And slowly, we started it from Uttar Pradesh. We started first brand was in Lucknow. Slowly, gradually, 15 years down the line, we are now into existence in 22 states and having more than 600 plus branches as on date. So, yes, we are one of the largest housing finance company having the coverage across pan India, that is 22 states. Now, initially when we started funding to the segment of affordable, even we were new to the segment, and yes, we were learning how to fund the people with an informal salaries, with an informal housing structure, with all the deviations to be taken, considering all the deviations. So we were struggling in the initial stages how to do it. But slowly, gradually, across states and every other rural areas, to be more precise, and understood the funding pattern, they understood the mutation pattern, understood how the tehsildar works in those regions. After understanding all those criteria, understood their paperwork, since it's the states have different cultures, different languages. There was a very big barrier for us to understand the mutation part, the languages. So we had to learn that as well and get those documents converted, understand it. And then we slowly, gradually started identifying the cases which can be identified for disbursement. So now here, it is not only disbursement. So once the disbursement is done, our journey starts with the customer for the next 20 years. So once the disbursement is now, how are we going? If the loan is good, if everything is good, we will not touch the customer. But here again, there would be problems all of a sudden coming from the authorities. Then how are we going to attack the properties? There were issues in mutations. There were issues in the property not being converted into non-actual properties. So again, we had to go ahead and connect with most of the collectors, tehsildars, had to collect number of court orders and ensure that with those judicial orders, going ahead with mutations and tehsildars, we started slowly disbursing the loans. And that from there the journey started, and being a success, now we do our disbursement, identify the customers, identify the properties, and do the disbursement very smoothly.
Thank you, Surajji. I'll come back to you in some time. Thanks, just be online. On this note, I want to bring in Mr. Suchindran, who is the MD CEO of Nestavia Housing Finance, which is the newest housing finance in India. Welcome, Mr. Suchindran.
Thank you.
And before we get into the housing finance side of things, in the last 15 years, we have dealt with low-income clients, initially on the microfinance industry. Then you have dealt with them for several years on the MSME kind of lending business, and now you are getting into the housing finance business yourself. So, what is your reflection of this client segment? How have you seen the repaying capacity across these three business segments in the last 10-15 years?
Thank you, Manikanda, and thank you, ILDC team, for this opportunity to be here. See, if you look at India, right, you should actually look at it as Bharat and India in a way, because the rural India and semi-urban India is very different from the urban India. I think that's the big challenge, and the microfinance, when it originally started, was focused on the financial inclusion, on the women empowerment, ensuring they also get to participate in the family decisions, they also get to be part of the decision making process, and their own ability to earn income to supplement the family, which will also be used to repay the loan. So the microfinance was more to ensure sustainability rather than taking them out of poverty to a great extent. When it comes to MSME is actually the other way, where most of them, typical life of a self-employed is like this. Around 25, they figure out, okay, I'm not going to get a job, what do I do? Right? Let me, find some way to take care of myself. So I set up a shop, I try to do some business, then I go through all the difficulties and the cyclicalities of the business. By 30, I settle down. Okay, now I know a shop, how to run it, what is difficult times, what is good times, how do I manage my cash flow. Then they get married. Then he saves for some more time. Around 35 or so, he tries to buy a small land. And then again he saves. Then he tries to construct a house when he's around 40. The time they come to MSME finance companies, they are around 45 years of age, where they have a business, where they have a property. They want to leverage the property and build their business. So how can I attach one more shop to this? How can I increase the stock levels? How can I improve my income levels? And what is the only asset I have? My property. Can I leverage it? So this is the two extremes of these two segments. Where housing comes in is actually in between, because he has a land. He doesn't have to save the money to construct the house, then move the family there to save the rental expenses. If he can move in and help him construct the house on the land that he already has, then we are accelerating it. So he can move the family quickly into their own house. Then his ability to then live, once he repays the housing loan, he can again mortgage it for a MSME. So the entire idea of housing was, for the self-employed segment, was, is there a way we could accelerate the construction of the house? And India, it is still a dream. It's a dream of many people who want to have an address for themselves, who want to move in and say, okay, I have my own home. Right? It's a big dream, and there is a lot of effort that has gone in, support from the government in various forms, through the Housing for All, PMAY, and which has also now undergone a lot of changes to ensure that it reaches the right kind of people. The housing finance companies also, to a great extent like us, focus on the financial inclusion side, which is borrowers who may not otherwise get a loan from the banking system. So you need to have an income tax return, you need to have a credit bureau score, and you need to have all your transactions in the bank account, without which a bank will not be able to assess your cash flows, based on which the loan is sanctioned. In our case, we go with whatever documents available with them. We assess their cash flows based on their invoices they keep, the records they maintain, which may or may not be income tax returns or GST returns. So we do a little bit of extra effort to understand their business, prepare some sort of a cash flow statement, see that the person has the ability to repay us, because the installment comes at a monthly level. So then, based on that, we provide the loan to help them construct their house. So
Thanks, Suchin. I think that was the main point which we wanted to illustrate here. We are not discussing about people who do not have the capacity to repay. Like, we are still talking about people who have the capacity to repay. We are only talking about a difference where they may not have the documentation to substantiate their ability to repay, like how a mainstream bank or a housing finance company requires. Now here is where I want to probably kind of explain the different kinds of institutions and why there is a nuance in how we go about doing whatever we are doing. There are large public sector banks, the SBI's, Bank of Baroda's of the world. Like, they have a lot of strengths, a lot of money, but do they have the wherewithal to come down to this segment and do this level of assessment of cash flow at an individual customer level? Like, if you ask us, we will say like no, in the sense that we would ideally say they should not get into this segment because they are not capable of dealing with this client segment. Same with private sector bank and large housing finance companies. Then we have the next layer of institutions, which what we call as small finance banks, who have the ability to deal with these clients. Affordable housing finance companies, companies like Aadhar, Distavia, who deal with this segment of clients, who have the ability to assess the repaying capacity of these clients. And then maybe look at regional rural banks and microfinance institutions who can also deal with these clients. So the solution has to be tailor-made to the customer segment and the core competency of the financial institutions as well. Otherwise, we are not going to find a viable solution in between. That is one. The second thing, if you noticed in what Mr. Suchin said, the land problem of a Bombay, Delhi, NCR, metro city client, which is basically informal settlement, may or may not have title, semi-formal titles, quality of title, vis-a-vis the quality of title of someone in a tier 2, tier 3 town, will also not be of perfect quality, but then the issue is two different issues and needs to be dealt with differently. The solutions and the way they look at risk is also different. So someone with a semi-formal tenure in a tier 3 town will still be the owner of the land, will still build a self-occupied house and they're going to stay there, and the degree of risk they see in that property is completely different from someone who is living or kind of having access to a high value metro city property with not so great quality of title. So even the semi-formal tenure that we talk about of a large city and a small city and a village are actually not comparable. Like, we need to look at it from the risk lens. That is what lenders are doing, which unfortunately the researchers, academy are not fully able to understand because they don't get into this side and we don't really get to go into that side. So that is one point which we thought we should highlight here. Surajji, are you there? Surajji? Suraj, are you there? Okay, so the next question which I wanted to bring you in is on the legal thing. Legal, how has the legal security, the quality of documentation evolved in the last 10-15 years that you've been in this industry, and how do you look at the differences and similarities across states, because most of the land related laws, rules and practices also vary from state to state.
asked me what are the changes in the last 15 years. So basically, in the last, if you are in 2025, so from 2010 till 2020, there were no changes as such. We were all using the traditional method of doing the registration, going to the registration office, getting the stamp duty paid. Yes, one changes was done on the stamp duty part, where the e-stamp came into the updation, and e-stamp was used, and then it was very easy to get the access of stamp duty paid from anywhere in India, get it registered, and then do the registration. So post, I don't say COVID, but over the last 3-4 years, the government is more into digitalization of the documentations as well. Now, if you see in the last 1 year, MP has come up with the digitalization of the documentation, where the registration is done online, and that is called recently in the last 3-4 months that system is called as Sampada 2.0, where the registration can be done online, and going forward they are coming up with a scheme where none of the documentation will be in a physical form. All the documentation shall be in the digital mode. So the physical documentation getting lost, getting tampered, using the documentation in multiple ways, in multiple organizations, using it for wrong purposes. Going forward by this method shall be completely eradicated. Because once it is getting digital, there will be a process where the documents shall be mortgaged digitally, and once it is mortgaged digitally, everything will be getting in the real-time basis. Now coming to the land records. Coming to the land records, fused, barring south was the land records is maintained excellent. Barring south, some of the states have also started digitalizing the land records, the SR records. So by getting those records digitally done, we in Aadhaar have identified a vendor who conduct property search for us online. So the traditional search which we used to do initially, where we had to pay to the advocate used to go to the sub-registrar office, get the property search done, go through it manually, take days, and then do the search report. And again, the authenticity of the report would not be 100%. But by getting the SRO, the land revenue records digitalized, secondly, the court records, also there is almost 1,24,000 courts which are now digitalized. So all when we accumulate together and when we get a digital search, we get a digital search thoroughly done for a property where we get the search on the litigation part, we get the search on the revenue records, we get the search on the SR records under one umbrella.
Okay, looks like we have lost you. It's okay. We'll come back to you, Surajji. On this note, let me bring in Kshitij. Kshitij is the
Getting that vendor.
Sorry, go. Yeah, complete Surajji. Complete.
Yeah. So by getting that vendor onboarded, we have got all the search reports online with minimal corrections, transaction getting reflected, revenue has been saved, disbursements have been done smooth, and the tag has been improved.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank you. On that note, let me bring in Kshitij. Kshitij is here. Kshitij Batra is also part of the panel. He's the co-founder and CEO of Teal. So the entity which is providing this service to them is actually Kshitij. So let me bring in him and also ask you what was the scene in the legal space when you entered and how has been the journey so far?
Sure. Thank you everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming post lunch. Hopefully we can, when we come pub after the coffee break, but in the meantime, we'll try to do our best here. It's nice to see Suraj sir. So actually, Aadhaar Housing Finance is one of our best customers. They've really done a fantastic job of being able to service this category, affordable housing finance. They deal with all types of cases across the country, have a very good system of dealing with it. And in fact, it was one of the IPOs recently that we were most enthusiastic about being in this space, because we have very optimistic, we have a lot of hope about how well the company is going to be doing, and not just it's founded based on what we have seen, how it functions and how efficiently they're able to actually disperse and the way they operate. So I think a lot of that confidence is from working together with them and seeing how this is done. But I'll quickly condense my answer. So we started 7 years ago. There was a lot of skepticism in the industry in housing finance when it came to digitization efforts. A big reason we started we started a team. It's a startup we've been working on the last 7 years. We thought, okay, maybe there is all of these efforts for digitization that have been pushed since the mid 80s, really, but yet there was not very much take up of you could say digitized records when it came to just not just transactions but also housing finance. And we said, we thought maybe what is the gap here? So let's start taking stock. There was a lot of skepticism that it's not complete. There's a lot of errors. A lot of the responses we heard were that garbage in, garbage out. Right? That if it's if the base records are not of high quality, what's the point of digitizing and publishing them if you're just going to see that garbage coming there? So we thought, that doesn't seem to match up in terms of what we had seen of the data. So we started basically just processing and figured out that actually in a lot of geographies there was an adequate amount of data to underwrite at least certain set of properties. So we just started building that pipeline, and we just said, let's see how far we can go. And we started with Delhi. We created a prototype. We went to HDFC, ICICI, a few banks like that. They were quite enthusiastic, and then we essentially were able to show them a proof of concept. When we had somewhat their buy-in, we decided to see how many states we could cover. So the landscape before was there was no product or service as such in this space, which provided what we call now a digital property search report. It's a basic report on a property that includes all the legal history of that property, a minimum of a 13-year look-back period. That's sort of a notional cutoff in the industry when it comes to looking at the title history. So that includes the chain of registrations, unbroken chain of title, land records if it's a rural property, litigation, as Suraj was saying that across different courts, so high courts, district courts, revenue courts, tribunals, that there's no litigation is going on in that property, no existing equitable mortgage, no development authority that might have some notional say on that property, let's say DDA in Delhi, or Noida, for instance, if there is an allotment letter, tracing back the title to that. So any set of encumbrances, RERA, of course, if it's a RERA property. So we finally started collating information from 9,000 different unique government agencies across the country. And we provide this basic report within a few minutes. It requires just the address of the property as an input, and that is the basis on which a lot of the diligence work, you could say, gets started across housing finance companies and banks. And it is particularly binding for affordable housing finance, where you have a lot of uncertainty or a lot of risk. You need quick turnaround times. It's low margins, so you want something that is affordable, right? And it's a digital journey for them. They don't need any offline dependencies. We handle everything and send them a digital report back, right? So this report has been somewhat our hero product, and now of course it's sort of a more organized industry and it's growing and so on. So we get to see, for instance, the gamut of challenges that exist across this spectrum of title. And affordable housing finance is a test bed really of these. It's sort of front and center for a lot of those challenges. I think I'll leave you with one quick sort of discussion point. We were talking about Samvitwa yesterday, and we were having many discussions afterwards about that as well. So, for instance, we see that property cards are increasingly being used as an input in terms of the loan files, in terms of the title diligence. but in no case that we have seen so far that it is a critical must-have to disperse a loan on a property. Not a single case that we have seen where the property cards issued by Sumitra are essential unless, in the case, will not get dispersed without it. So maybe that will happen over time. Lenders are still skeptical about the legality of those property cards. There's still, it's sort of you have to wait and see what the courts say about that. Maybe litigation will come up. Maybe those challenges get sort of answered by the court in different courts in some ways. But lenders are waiting and watching. So those kind of interesting sort of dimensions really come through. And I think that's part of the maybe fun of some of the types of things that we do from a policy and research standpoint.
I'll bring in Mr. Suchin on the Swamitva part, but before that, just for the purpose of the benefit of the audience, number of clients and number of transactions that you've done.
So 150 plus clients, 7 million transactions, so 70 lakh transactions so far.
70 lakh unique property search has happened on the platform for 150 odd clients, right? Like, so that's the scope and the scale of work which is happening. So we've traveled quite a bit. There's still quite a long way to go. But of course, the last point which he was trying to say, that Swamitva card, they have not seen it in any of these transactions.
We have seen it, but it's not a must.
Yes. Yeah, so it's not a must on this, and it's also a reflection of the segment where the formal system is still working and where the larger population is still there. Also is a factor, which is where I'll probably
Okay, sorry, can I just add one point to that? That said, it is still exceptionally helpful to have some of these initiatives, because what they do is, one, it reduces the risk, and it's particularly binding for affordable housing finance players, right? It reduces the cost of diligence, which is also more critical in these segments, and it makes it faster to turn around, these are very competitive markets, and it's your customers can be very fickle. They can quickly move to other players, and sometimes the informal segment. So it's actually very important. Here is where you see the benefits concentrated for all of these efforts that different states are doing at these national schemes. So
yeah, thanks. Yeah, Mr. Suchin, like, so you transition from micro lab or lab to housing finance, right? Like, that's a transition which you've made. There's also a transition in the way in which you treat legal security as such. And then, of course, there is this whole issue of semi-formal tenure and semi-formal documentation of security which you're going. So how have you thought through that part, and how are you approaching this?
See, I think from a lender's perspective, it's very, very important that the collateral is sacrosanct. Because while the best effort basis is for the customer to repay the loan on a monthly basis, but if the customer is unable to pay for whatever reason, as a lender, the only thing that we can fall back is on the collateral. So the collateral, in this case, means the title of the collateral. So very few lending institutions, whether it is a bank or a housing finance company, will take risk on the collateral. So the title of the collateral is very, very critical. And if it is not fully authenticatable, and there are a lot of other types of properties. So if, for example, if you go to Karnataka, you have something called as Ekata, Bikata properties, right? Where you have the right of possession till you are alive. Or you can transfer the possession, but the title can never be transferred. So someone can come and live in your place. You can move out because they have given you the money to come and live in your place. But the title of the property will be in someone else's name. We don't even know whose name it is. So as a lender, we will never be able to lend on such properties, because how will you enforce the collateral? Who's going to come and buy the property? Here, what we call it as a marketability of the property. See, India is still a sentimental country, right? So let's say there is a house. It is next to a burial ground. How many people will be happy to go buy a house there? It's an excellent posh house, right? It's a bungalow type of house, but very next to a burial ground. We won't buy. Whatever may be, it may come cheaper, lower cost, we'll say, no, why? Why? We don't have any other place to buy. Why are you going to buy there? So, from the lender perspective, the collateral and the enforceability of the collateral is very, very critical. And the enforceability is also driven by the regulations, driven by the legal precedents. So, so the lenders, whether it is a bank or housing finance company or any other NBFC, will always try to ensure that the title is always cleaner. If there is some amount of I would say where you are not very sure or there is a way that it cannot be enforced, they will stay away from it. So to answer your question, the semi-formal will be very very difficult to be financed by a formal lender.
Right, great. Actually, this is where the point also came in the other sessions, where when the government gives a patta, like it pretty much gives a tenure right to build a house, reside there, but then it comes with a lock-in period or it comes with a restriction for alienation. We need to look at it from a lender's point of view. That what in case of default? What is the recourse in case of default? Not that the lender wants to take that property, auction it and recover the money, but the lender definitely requires the option to do that. Whether they do it or not is secondary, but then the option should be there upfront, and which is where we have a major disconnect with which how the housing mission works by giving patta, having land, making them eligible beneficiaries for getting a housing done while there is lack of participation from the lending institutions. So that issue is still there. But then that is where initiatives like the land bill, which is the draft which has come about, I'll request Mr. Kshitij to see how you see it and what is the way forward when that gets implemented.
Yeah, no, I think it's very helpful. I think to be honest, different states already have versions of it that are there in practice. The priority towards having digital records is obviously something that is good. I think it recognizes the need for having a digital record, because I think it's unequivocally think it's a positive step. Like it's in the right direction. It needs to be implemented in organized states, but yeah, I think I don't have anything that controversial to say about it.
Great. Suraj sir, like I'll come to you that, so now that we have seen things are evolving, there's a lot of digitization, there's this kind of, but then how do you look at the coming years, like next 5 to 10 years, what do you see as how things will pan out in terms of security, the legal side of things, and what would you like to see?
See, slowly and gradually, as I said, the government has started digitalization. So recently, 15 days back, I got a news from the people from Haryana that they are also starting with the digitalization documentation. So if it gets started slowly and gradually in the next 5 years, if the full Indian state governments, the SROs goes digital, documentation goes digital, job is done paperless, everything will be done smoothly, everything will be done in time, everything will be in the online system. There would be minimal frauds happening in HFCs. As we are seeing it right now, there would be minimal or would be eradicated once this is done digital. Records are digital, everything is digital, the work culture will be more speed, the process will be more speed, the disbursement will be more speed, and due to this, once everything is speed, the litigation would also decrease. Litigation papers, everything will be, since as I said, there are 1,24,000 courts which are online. Nowadays, every month the courts are getting online. So sitting down in a place and getting records at a rural district court in Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand is literally amazing, rather than relying on the advocates. So by adopting this culture, by taking this adaptability by every state, the process would be very smooth, very transparent, and would be very helping in the development of the country, whether it is funding or any other.
Great, sir. Thank you. Thanks. Mr. Suchindran, I'll ask basically, like, how much of tech do you use in your current process, and where do you see PropTech going in the next few years?
No, I think, see, the tech has evolved a lot. I think today we keep talking about AI and things like that. But generally, if you look at it, right, the younger generation today who are into college, imagining them walking into a bank branch or a housing finance branch and asking for a loan. Everyone will say, okay, write to ChatGPT, which is the best housing finance company? Who gives me the best rate? Can you give a comparison? So most of this will move digital. And so as an organization which has started recently, we have the benefit of the best of technologies that is available. So we are building an end-to-end digital platform where the customer can come in digitally and will be serviced digitally through a customer app eventually. So the entire journey of the customer coming to us till the sanction and then the disbursement and then the subsequent servicing till the loan is closed, we have built it as a digital journey. So the biggest differentiator will come in with the registration bill if it becomes an act. Imagine how share trading was those days. Physical shares. It has to move from one person to another person. Lot of forgery, lot of lost in transit. So many problems. Today, anyone seeing any challenge in share trading? No. You buy a share, comes to your demat account. You sell your share, your demat is debited, you get the money in your bank. Everything is seamless. So the days are not long, maybe few years down the line, the property will also become as digital as it is, as become in shares and other places. Because it gives a lot more comfort on the security and also that you need not worry about the safety of your original documents. Today you worry, right, whether I keep it in the bank vault. But there are a lot of cases where the banks have said they are not responsible for the contents of the vault because they are not aware of the contents of the vault. So where do you keep it? You can't keep it in your house, you can't keep it in a bank vault. How secure will you keep your property documents? Assuming it is all in digital form, like your share certificate, then you don't have to worry about at all that where it will be kept. It is as long as it is with you, it is there. And then in case of your unfortunate demise, then it actually goes to the next of kin through the transmission process. So the one point that Manikandan was saying, right, the mutation or the title deed of your parent not being passed to the children or the grandparents to the grandchildren, all that can be taken care of because the moment it moves digital, the records have to be updated. So the delay or the lethargy to update the records will automatically get taken care of once it moves into the digital side of things.
Great, great. In fact, we had a couple of RERA chairperson people also at the conference. Maybe we should start the dematerialization, the next step of the digitization from the RERA apartments itself. Like RERA approved projects can move to dematerialization quickly because it's very contained, it's urban, it's high value, there is an authority in place, so maybe we can probably start from there and then take it down, and that could be a good place to start because we need to go to the next generation of digitization as well, just scanning, putting it out there. Like we need to go to that level of dematerialization of the property recording itself. It makes it easier in the financial space.
I think it makes a huge difference. I mean, where we see once there is a digital option available to do diligence on property, we have seen in those areas the more lenders start entering those micro markets. Where we have offered services, one of our clients, for instance, had told us that they keep on getting customers as a lender, particularly in affordable housing finance. They said that they would keep on getting customers to come and borrow those properties, but these people did not have the manpower and the local networks to have advocates, values, and so on. Go to those areas to do the diligence. They didn't have the local context. So local context is important for the risk mitigation perspective. Sometimes they may know, okay, this area has, for instance, a lot of litigated properties, or this is where frauds are happening, and so on and so forth. So once they sort of plugged into this system where there was a digital journey, they suddenly started opening up new geographies, and we saw other lenders also coming in those areas. So these processes of computerization of a lot of these processes online for new registrations, mutation, linkaging, and so on. And then the second is the publishing of past records. So first, the goal of this stage should be just digitize and publish. That's it, right? Then you can maybe work on, if you have the additional state capacity. I don't know which states will, but if you do, then work on organizing it, then work on enhancing it, and then maybe work on linking it. But even if you just publish, there would be enough of an incentive mechanism in the private sector to be able to use that raw sort of base layer on which other things can be kind of sorted and built out, and it's incentive compatible to be able to provide other services there, right? One thing I would say on the new Registration Act, if I have to say something maybe slightly controversial, is that there is an urge that happens to be able to provide sort of more authority to the registrar, to the tehsildars, and so to the extent that these systems can in a way reduce that dependency, it will be better for the system overall. And the states that have done the best are the ones which rely the least on the discretion of the registrar on the ground and more on the systems in place, to make to do any kind of changes on the property, transactions, registrations, mutations, and so on.
And so where do you see prop tech in the next 5-10 years? Like, what are the things which you will see happen?
I think it totally depends on the progress that the state governments can make based on some of these raw ingredients which I mentioned, which is in terms of the efforts towards digitization. But I think there is a good trend that is going on across different states to make that happen. And there's a demonstration effect, of course, because everyone is here to be able to also contribute to that and push some of those efforts. You guys also are putting in a lot of research and pushing different governments and policy efforts to make that happen. So I think that's a very interesting time where more transparency will be there, and we'll see more applications. Honestly, maybe towards what Sudhindra was saying about having this DMAT type of model. I don't know if it will be exactly the way the share dematerialization works, but effectively it will be that. I think people won't have to worry about their property papers and those types of things. I think transaction will become a lot more seamless, and same with housing finance. I think refinancing will happen a lot more, and then hopefully also securitization in the mortgage markets will happen a lot more as well.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Great point. Mr. Suchindran, you want to make some closing final remarks from your side?
I think, from the government initiative, right, I think you should take the other major business of lending, which is on the vehicle finance. Right? The importance of the Vahan database. Right? The Vahan has transformed that totally. Earlier, it was like your property. Right? Which vehicle was registered, you will only know when you go there. You want to do a transfer, you will have to go there. Whether your insurance is there, whether your pollution certificate is updated, nobody knows. Now, the Vahan database, every information is available. Right? So the government has taken initiative to ensure that the vehicle now is much more seamless. I think so. I don't think the property is too far away. I think it is, the registration bill is in the right direction. And the most important thing in that is that apart from the angle on frauds, it also ensures that now you are saying the Aadhaar has to be linked. And to a great extent that will reduce other transactions, the property being bought in someone else's name, property being used on the power of attorney basis. All those angles or instances where there is a potential for misuse is also getting addressed. And eventually, the more digital it becomes, more ethical also it becomes. So I think that is, maybe another 5-10 years time we should be able to see that in action. That's all.
Yeah, the absolute number of vehicles is known, but absolute extent of land is not. I think that's the major difference which we are grappling with. Mr. Suraj, you have any final closing remarks on this?
As rightly said by the panel over here, that yes, the state governments have to keep a check and have to implement the digitalization. And once it is digitalized, everything will be, like said, will be smoothly done, and this will surely help in the development of the country and the development of the individual states.
Thank you, Kshitij.
I think there are certain reforms that do need to also take place. I mean, one is, for instance, with CERSAI, which is created under the SURFACI Act, 2002, which is a centralized repository of equitable mortgages. There are many challenges, particularly with that. It's a 100% government of India owned entity. There's a concept of equitable mortgage in India, which is somewhat unique in the sense that before people used to physically put their property papers, as the kind of security. The bank used to keep it in a locker, and obviously all kinds of frauds can take place, duplicate property papers, and so on. So SVC was created to establish a centralized repository where the banks have to report that they have given an equitable mortgage. The reason they do an equitable mortgage is they don't need to pay the stamp duty, which is very high, for registered mortgages. So everyone is just doing some predominant mortgages that the way they happen in India is still equitable. Now some states have revised the registered mortgage rates and they are going to be comparable. It's a long way away until they become sort of the same. So anyway, so this authority, banks have to report by law every month all the mortgages that they have done, but they don't report it. I mean, they report it in the way it's recorded, by someone writing it. The address is in a different way, and so on. It's very hard to actually search that information. So banks complain every year at this Indian Bank Association conferences that they keep on putting in data, but they can't find out whether there is an existing mortgage on this property already or not. It's very hard to search. So that I think one of the areas of reform should be around how do we create a better model where this entity, which has a lot of authority and has an ability to be able to create good impact in terms of preventing duplicate mortgages and reducing fraud and risk and so on. How should it be enabled in a better way by, let's say, the private sector and latest technologies to be able to provide unique identifiers of the property and figure out if they have an existing mortgage. That's sort of like one of the bugbears, and so that's why I just
so you've been kind of models where we go in and eventually have unique property identification numbers at a property level, and it needs to be kind of held at that level and kind of make it unique. So we have experts in the audience, so I will not leave this opportunity, but then request you sirs to also make comments and ask specific points on how you see this panning out in the next few years.
You said that the stamp registration fee is very high on mortgages.
Sorry, sir.
On mortgages.
Mortgages, registration fee is very high. How much is it?
It varies from state to state.
It varies from state to state, but in several states, 5 to 6%.
No state in India charges 5 to 6% on mortgages.
Okay, sir.
6.5% uniformly everywhere.
No,
sir, I don't think
Maharashtra charges 1%, which is very high. Various states have different
Now,
rates.
one side,
3%,
the banks,
2%.
Yes.
they want to do the mortgage. It's a legal system.
Yes.
Saying that stamp duty is very high. On the other side, you cry that saying that we are not able to find out whether the equitable mortgage is other people or not.
Yes.
So why it is difficult? Either you follow the law which is there, or you don't follow the law. So don't try that you are having inconvenience.
So
I think it's important to.
One of the Maharashtra Court laws are the equitable mortgages are compulsorily registrable in law by Maharashtra.
Yes.
It has to be got paid by other states.
Yes.
So that is very easy.
Yes, sir.
Now the surface here and whatever this is,
Sir.
Yes, sir.
not surface here.
Sir. Yes.
That's a parallel system they want to create, and it gives only partial information. It doesn't give the full information. So register is the point which is the authentic information on this, and it is there. Where equitable mortgage or exchange information is not there.
Yes, sir.
So banks should not do the equitable mortgage. They could right only pay the stamp duty and credit mortgage registered.
Actually,
As
sir, the
simple as
stamp
that.
duty
Everybody will know about this. Today equitable mortgages, other people are third party is not known. Public doesn't know.
Sir.
I think the big point is that is registering a mortgage a source of revenue or is it a user charge?
Yes.
And I think we need to create an environment which looks at it as a user charge rather than as a source. We need to do that. I mean, I hate to say it in my state, but many years ago what we did was we had a rate of 3% on mortgages. We brought it down to 0.05% subject to a maximum of 1,000.
Yes.
That's it. We just did that. Because it's not a source of revenue. It's to ensure, because the state gains hugely by doing this. the number of frauds come down, the number of transactions, the number of court cases are going down. State is gaining. All this is a gain for the state. So I need to bring this down as a
You bring in
use.
lot more complaints
Only
because
on the
it costs.
mortgages, there's a big debate and debate is going on that even the registration fee on the sales, everything also should be brought down.
Yes, I agree with that.
So we
Nowhere
did-
in the world,
We did an analysis of
nowhere in
72
the
countries.
Nowhere in the
Look
world,
at rates.
the rates for the registration or the fee is so high.
Correct.
What we do is, we do not tax the holding of the property.
Correct.
We only transfer of the
Transfer
property.
gas charges, correct.
So rather than taxing the transfer of property fee should be, initially when the registration started, the registration fee was levied to defray the cost of registration with the government authority.
Correct.
Sort of we use of this thing.
Yes.
And subsequently the stamp act was introduced and this is increased. This has become transfer tax. So this is not a correct system.
Correct.
So we should bring it down.
Correct.
So not only for mortgages, even for sales and other transactions also. So there is a more incentive for the people to more and more to register.
Yeah, but politically,
And along with that,
you have to recognize the political economy of the country we live in. Here's a country where you have reduced the state's ability, the states as entities, ability to raise own resources virtually to nothing. Today, GST is not controlled by them and they have what? Little bit of excise, registration, this charge on stamp duty, and they have transport. That's it. They don't have any other SOR. So, convincing them that this rate needs to be brought down is not an easy task.
It's
It's not
very hard.
differing with you.
It's
It
very
needs to be done. We need to find ways of tackling this. But it's not easy in current political economy.
But sir, if they capped it to 0.5%, I guarantee you a lot of those equitable mortgages will move to registered by itself. Because
there are
that's
number of
also-
states.
No,
there
no,
are
I
number of states
that's what.
where it is
So
0.
one way to influence
0.5%
this is,
and they don't do.
one way to influence this is,
My
let us
state
start.
I come from, it says 0.5%. My own property when I mortgage, the bank says no, we do not do mortgage. You only get an equitable mortgage. So fine, that's for you.
No, there are two
So
problems.
it's hard to compete
The
with zero.
equitable mortgage is also occurring where you do not have urban records.
Correct. That is where.
So you don't have a record. Where will the charge be recorded?
That is also.
So I don't have a record, then I want an equitable mortgage. So the lender
That
wants it.
distinction
in
has to
affordable
be
housing
made.
So we
Certainly
need,
that's the
so we
case.
need to work on two fronts. Create urban records, which we are doing. The state is concerned about it. At least it's saying that we're going to have Raksha and what have you. I hope they don't mess it up too much. But so that's one movement, that create urban records. And the other is, as you said, you have to find ways to lower the rate. And so one way of doing that is, I haven't seen a single paper which can tell me what is the number of equitable mortgages and the number of charges being created in India. You know, if I could just draw attention, a comparative attention, that these are 1% of the total number of, say,
So
mortgages being undertaken.
So we can
There's
tell you,
a-
right,
there's
in Delhi, for instance, less than 2% of all mortgages are registered. I can
Yeah,
tell you,
but
less
we
than-
have the data.
We
So
have the data.
that's
we,
not-
we could do a paper on this, and
Yes.
you know that pinpoints attention, that
Yes, sir.
enables.
What
And by the
I
way,
just add-
Chandran, don't have so many illusions about this registration. I'm sorry to say this. This, I mean, it's nice to say. In fact, it's creating problems. You have a registration act which is calling itself a Registration Act 2025. That means everything done under the 1908 Act, including amendments by every state, are nullified when this comes into operation.
Yeah.
I will have to find ways of redoing a lot of stuff. And this is an act which is doing nothing new.
Right.
Whatever it is saying that should be done is already being done by many states.
Many states.
Right? It's not doing anything new. The real problems which we are facing are not being tackled by this act. Unfortunately. It's not. And as Kshitiz very rightly pointed out, it's actually saying that the registrar will now have, the sub-registrar will have the power to cancel registrations. It's ridiculous. Look at the amount of discretion you are giving people who had no discretion earlier. I don't know whose brainwave this is. We need to re-examine these things. I haven't seen enough written on it in anywhere about this Registration Act in the last one. It came out what? End May, early June
Yeah,
for discussion.
June
I
was
haven't
the
seen
end of
any critical article.
response.
This country's ability to write critically is gone.
We should use this opportunity, sir. We had this conference. We can use this as the platform and kind of and also look at it from the different stakeholders, like, because like each one has their own pros and cons in looking at what they require. Like for example, the requirement for registration or not, right? Like can be looked at two different ways. In fact, while the stamp duty is one thing, the ease of doing business itself is another asset, which is like it's not about registering once, it's about going and cancelling when the loan gets done. So the bank needs to go back and do it.
The new registration act says even a contract, even a agreement to sale must be compulsorily
So
registered.
there is like
I'm going to have to do it twice.
That's right.
there's a gatekeeping there as well, which will be rent seeking at some point.
Absolutely.
So it kind of adds another layer. And which is where digitization helps quite a bit. But like if it can become, like say for example, I think states are considering doing away with the personal visit of the lender to go and cancel the registration. They're trying to do it remotely. So while mortgage happens at the registrar's office by the borrower to the bank, they're considering doing away with the requirement of the banker going to the register office and doing it, and see if they can happen remotely online and stuff like that. So like there is also the element of ease of doing business, because that is also something which will come in.
One small thing I wanted to just add is that even if they reduce the registration fees today or the stamp duties today for registered mortgages, there still needs to be the bank will still need to look at the past records of equitable mortgages and CERSAI to be able to ensure there was no previous equitable mortgage. So in a way, it's sort of the point of reforming CERSAI is still, I think, valid. So I think because it's not going away, those past mortgages will be there in the system for a long time. But I think agreed with.
Yeah, so this brings the elements of this whole semi-formal tenure as well. Base itself does not exist. So which is where we'll also have to use the whole registration system smartly, and also the revenue system smartly in creating and improving the quality of the documentation, which will make it good enough for. And the other issue on this whole registration is also that like traditional housing finance default rates are less than 2%. We are less than 2% is the NPA. So for those two people, the balance 98 people should also go through the entire process of registration. Like this is where the real thing comes, and current formal system has still not gone down to the level of risk which they should ideally be taking. So this whole idea that like let's not do it, because they are not even envisioning at the time of giving the loan that the default will happen against this client, which is also the preference to say like why register, like do it easier, like do it a more corporatized, sophisticated way of doing this business. But then our segment is going to be the tough segment, and which is where there are AHFCs who mandatorily do registration as a part of offended risk mitigation measure. Like let me have a public record where it registers that I have a charge on this property. Like even where it's optional to register, AHFCs go and register only for this, because the tenure or the security documentation is not strong enough, long enough to kind of be absolutely sure. So at least on this date, let me create a charge on the public record saying I have a charge on this property. So these are,
I
yeah.
have a question.
Yeah, please.
It might be a little different from, we're trying to gauge what you're saying, a little difficult for us to understand, but something very basic that I'm trying to think is a lot of discourse on land and housing is a man buying a property or collateral or mortgage, but the women or the gender aspect is probably missing link. So how do you think you're trying to fit that in? Because even if there is, I'm just trying to understand how do you guys look at it from finance and from your perspectives. Just a few more, they might be layman questions, but pardon me for that.
Layperson questions.
Layperson.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes, again, man, it's a condition that I'm
We are also conditioned. I'll explain why we are conditioned like that. Go ahead and complete.
Second, when you talk about access, the last line that you have said was that digitization is the way forward. But we've seen it in multiple times that though we have technology, though we have data, access is a barrier, and it still is. And the problem that we're trying to solve is for the class who does not have access. So how do you look at that, and how conflicted do you feel about both these ideologies? And third is on collateral. Someone who's coming from the class, collateral is a huge thing for them to get loan, or the kind of conversations we're having. So how do we solve that, or how are we thinking about those
we'll take these three questions one by one. See, from a gender perspective, I think most lenders, whether it is bank or HFC, want the entire family to be part of the loan.
But that's how
Right.
it's campaigned, right?
No, it is not campaign because it is also, see, not in every case, see, those days are gone where it is only a single person's income, right?
But
So
again,
the
it's that one
affordability
class
of,
of people like us, we are sitting and talking English, having who has two incomes.
Okay, let me phrase it differently. Okay, a housing, an entity which is doing a housing loan is looking at the family as the borrowing entity,
exactly,
irrespective of gender composition. So, if you are looking at a single woman as a potential borrower, I can with fair confidence say that there is going to be no discrimination in approaching that single woman as the family entity and going ahead processing the loan. Like, because the family is the entity under consideration, which is also why the language is slightly messed up this side. We apologize, right? Like when we use a masculine thing of he or whatever, actually the people are talking about the family as the borrowing unit from multiple angles. The multiple angles are the user is usually, or the decision maker in the housing process, at least in most societies, are women as a user as well and income contributor in terms of how someone manages the households and contributes to the repayment over the tenure of the loan. So it's seen as a team effort at the risk assessment side from the lender's point of view. So it is seen as it's family unit. If we have not used the gender terminologies appropriately, we apologize for that. Coming down to at vulnerable sections of society where women single, like if they have the access to the property, the lending institution is not discriminating. That much I can say with fair degree of assurance. Now, is the inheritance happening the right way? It's slightly out of the scope of the lending institution. It's a larger social thing which we will have to deal with.
I mean, Kerala state has a different model, the rest of India has a different model. So somewhere it also in a way whether it is patriarchal or matriarchal, it's also in a way the state, the way it is, some call it as tradition, but the regulations can also change it, right? But slowly now that is all, see that now everyone has an equal share. No more it is, right, you have a legal ad certificate, so many things have also come in from a legal perspective to ensure that everyone is treated equally.
The next question in terms of digital awareness of the segment that we are talking about.
Yeah. See earlier, what is the kind of phone penetration in India? Right? You talk about UPI, right? The kind of UPI usage is everywhere. Today, you don't need to take your wallet, to any place. All you need is your phone. And it is not true only in urban; it is also true in semi-urban, rural. Slowly, it's changing everywhere. 3 rupees, you don't have a change, sir. GPay, madam, GPay. No, you can buy a coconut water in GPay, right? So, technology adoption always comes with a lag. But once it comes, it changes a lot of things, right? The ease of comfort, everything is in your control, right? You are able to see every transaction that is happening in front of you. There's nothing which is, it's like a black box, right? So let's say you are a shop owner, you have given it, you have employed 2 people. Remotely, you can see whether all the transactions are happening or not. In cash, you couldn't see. You have to put a camera, put it on the cash box to see every time he takes to give a change or put cash, he's not taking something else out. So the technology will take time, but it can give a lot more comfort if it is done ethically, right? And we are seeing it in different forms. See, let's say you apply for a passport. How efficient it is, right? When you do the confirmation for going there, they say your interview time is this. Then your passport is processed, then your passport is couriered, it comes to your house. No, the entire information is tracked by you. You have the power of that information. So that is the technology that will come. But it will take time. And the big differentiator is your younger generation. The children use more phones than the senior people. I think the future generations will be much more tech savvy than the older
So what
generation.
I think it's more on the social education.
Also, yes.
Okay.
So it will take time. It will evolve. Property transactions are not like frequent transactions. We will probably not get rid of intermediaries overnight in a property transaction. Like your stamp vendors, your people who are facilitating the whole registration process. Like it will be going more like the route in which say a CSC went. Like common service centers
Correct.
where required. But then you also see slowly there is reduction in the need for so it will go in this evolution where there has to be the role of intermediation will not vanish overnight just because of digitization, but it will slowly reduce over a period of time and we'll have to take it as part of evolution. And what was your third question?
Collateral. Maybe it's a difficult issue for
Yes.
the poor. It is, but
It is.
See, there are a lot of institutions which provide unsecured loans. So, but again, the big challenge is that see, everyone is dealing with public money, right? So they are also answerable for the whatever they have lent, they have to get it back because they borrow from banks. Banks take money from the public, right? So everyone, when they are dealing with public money, there is also a fiduciary responsibility that you lend carefully. You also ensure that you get the money back.
yeah, that's where microfinance came in for unsecured loans, for
Correct.
loans which would
So,
work
yeah,
on
probably-
The intent was great, but over a period of time, somewhere the greed and the
Yeah,
other
but
things took over.
But to some extent, microfinance with trust within the community still works.
Yes, see, wherever people have not taken beyond their ability, not a problem. But somewhere people have taken beyond their ability, it has actually caused more problems than other
But it is
things.
a problem.
It has become a problem by itself, in a way.
So,
Like
So-
market shocks, like with microfinance, market shocks plays a role.
so the market blaming and all is fine, but then it's not market. Okay, so the people inside will also know like it's individual. Like if an individual wanted to pay, they could have still paid, but then the payment is still not happening in various cases. We're not even defending either side. Like let's not tell market on that. But then probably he'll not answer. I will give you the nuance in this. It's similar to access to housing and access having a title, right? Thank you,
Sorry
sir.
to
Thank
say
you.
this, but plenary starts in 2 minutes.
Yes,
We really
we
should.
remind them. Thank you. Thanks all for the time. Thanks to the panelists. Thanks ILTC.
Thank you.
Thank you. We started late. Why will we finish on time?
फोटो लिया वो भेजो। हाँ, अभी भी।
ग्रुप फोटो
Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't answer the last question, but